Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are getting ready to hop into one of the last games of the regular season here between SFUCS and their opponents here. Looks like two pretty deep teams, but no one with any like real aces going on today.
I guess not. We do have a GM, at least in this first game. Krillmon. It's going to be a ZVP. And on the old map pool, too. I guess it's worth noting, as this is a week 4 match, I guess is what was determined while we were waiting.
Yeah.
It was a little late.
I guess there was some confusion because they had some mix-ups going on. But they were able to get it sorted out, so we are getting into our first game now here. So let's go ahead and hop in the bottom right-hand corner with the red Zerg player. It is Krillmon.
In the top left, as the teal Protoss, it is Daydreamer for Simon Fraser University.
So Simon Fraser University, I think, is this StarCraft club that has like 50-something players. And none of them are like particularly good. I think I read Daydreamer was their best player. He's like Masters 1. But it's pretty nuts that a school can still have like 50-plus players on a team that just all hang out and land together. And they've done better than their lineup would suggest. And I just wonder if the fact this school has some kind of like StarCraft culture helps them with that.
Probably. When you have a team to actually work around and play with and encourage you to keep on grinding even when you don't feel like it absolutely helps. It's true for anything, really. So I'd say so. But I don't know how this game is gonna go. I did know that Krillmon is GM, but I guess I really don't know what Daydreamer is. I think he was unranked when we got in here. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's not playing on, heck, even Korea, I suppose. Europe's usually kind of out there. Or just simply using an alt account. So we'll see. I think very soon we'll see any differences of if there's like a very large difference of their play style or play skill. I guess we'll see it pretty soon. But so far we just have similar macro openers. So not much to talk about.
Yeah, in the write-up that Powerfo did, he's a guy that works for the CSL and follows it really closely. He did mention that Daydreamer, I think, is high masters. He's the best player on Simon Fraser University. So I think we might be seeing, like, if it does go to Game 5, probably our ace match here. Kremlin's pretty good. He took a game off Semper in the TESPA tournament, apparently.
Cool. All right, like his name did sound a little familiar, but I figured I was messing it up with like Crimson or something like that. So that's actually pretty nice then. I guess continues to give me more faith in what Krillmon does here. But okay, Daydreamer, maybe the best on Simon Fraser University. All right, open up with the Stargate so far. Since we are in the older map pool, we do have what I think at the time, and probably going down in history as Zerg favored maps a little bit. It's got these open spaces, especially on a map like Ascension to Ire. And then I guess we also still have Abyssal Reef in the map pool, which might come later if we go to a Game 4.
Yeah, I think it would be tough for there to be a sweep because the teams did look pretty even. But you never know. Sometimes when you get momentum in these series, things can just get stomped and you can have a 3-0 sweep. Still macroing up these guys. Just getting that third base out is Kremlin. First Oracle on the way from Daydreamer. That's going to give him some map info, a little bit of presence here. And it's going to be on Kremlin to make sure he like kind of senses this Oracle incoming. I think it's pretty standard timing. So he should have spores in place, or at least the Queen's there to deal with it.
Right. Zerg players, especially these high skill levels, GM certainly counts for it, will know the exact timing of an Oracle hitting. They want to, 3:30 or more on like 3 minutes. You want to check to see if they have a Stargate because you usually have free reign. They don't usually get stalkers. And then if you don't want to bother trying to actually scout, which seems like a missed opportunity, but say you don't, then around 3:45, 5 minutes, I suppose, yeah, that Spore Crawler would have to complete as the Oracle comes in. Spore Crawlers are in fact already completed. One of the main first and foremost, then two elsewhere. Queen's even reacting as they saw where the Oracle was headed to, and Daydreamer just slaps that revelation. That was kind of a fast trigger pull though. Bit of a too fast of a trigger finger, as it's not really the army you want to see. There's not really important seeing those Queens of the Revelation.
Yeah, it does look like, Kremlin actually setting himself up to try to go for a bit of a run by here. You're not going to get through that Adept Wall as long as it's controlled properly, and there is no third yet, so there's no real threat. But that might keep Daydreamer feeling like he has to be a bit more defensive at home. He knows there's a decent amount of Lings out on the map. They could be taking up aggressive positions. He has to be watching out for any kind of dropper lords. Although, no, he's got that Phoenix out to be cleaning that up. So mainly just watching the front at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty safe opener, but then, of course, what's more interesting is what he's doing right now, which is going into a lot of Gateways Charge and Templar Archives. We do have more and more common just follow-ups to a Stargate, Robo, Twilight Council, something along those lines, as opposed to a very, very quick third. So Chromon shouldn't quite be on edge yet, seeing that the third's only taken down, like, now, beyond 5 minutes. But it should tell him, A, that there is something researching somewhere in the Man of the Natural, and that B, like, yeah, there's a potential. There's this follow-up all in, which, it's a little tricky. If he doesn't scout, he doesn't prepare for it, he could absolutely win, even if there's a huge skill difference. But he is already getting a lot of roaches, so either, that late third base has already told him what he needs to know. There's also sight on the Robo and the timing on that. Or he just is preparing for a very safe timing to deal with only Archon drops. This is not just Archon drops, it's also those charge lots.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty potent move out here. Coming in with this Phoenix too to try to pick off that Queen. There's so many roaches in place here though, and they're going to be ready to deal with that. The charge lot warping is coming down here. The Phoenix lift is going to go off, but these Zealots are just going to absolutely evaporate to the roach wall here.
Yeah, and it is quite the hefty roach wall. You can see like half those roaches, so there's only like 10 or 8, and the Zealots actually surround them. The Archons get some decent splash damage, and it's actually a snowball effect, but Chromon had the perfect amount of roaches. He got a lot of damage done on this third Nexus. In the meanwhile, that was something that Daydreamer absolutely needs, especially since his attack failed. But now it's so weak, and there's still so many roaches that are going to have speed soon, that he's going to need to deal with a very limited amount of Immortals.
Yeah, he's going to have one out very soon, and then he might have like a second one halfway done for the attack. But he's going to be hanging on with mostly just Gateway units here. He even lost one of those Archons completely for free during the recall process. And this is going to be a tough hold for the third. He's probably not going to die right now, but he's got to hang on against this huge roach attack before his Immortals are ready.
I think he does have the means to hold on. A couple force fields, a decent amount of charge lots for sure. And this just isn't really Chromon going all in or already maxed out or something like that. Ooh, that was a good stasis trap right there. Usually a Ling pops that at the front, but instead the roaches were awfully clumped up.
Yeah, now actually Daydreamer with that stasis trap going off, feeling comfortable chasing this army down. And if he can clean up all these Ravagers and then turn around and clean up the roaches, maybe he feels that opens up a pathway for him to be a little bit more aggressive or to get greedy because he knows the army is going to be weakened severely here. And that Nexus is going to get right-clicked, and that's going to go down. And now even if he cleans this army up, he's at a pretty serious economic disadvantage.
Yeah, but he did get at least some time the third Nexus, and Chromon had to invest a lot of roaches to kill it. So it is a bit of a trade, but it's just roaches. Behind this, Chromon didn't just make Hydras, he also made a fourth base, up to 66 drones, and roaches aren't the worst thing to lose, even if it was quite a bit of them. But I like Daydreamer's thought process to go for the counter here. He still got the Warp Prism, he gets a lot of those charge lots alive. There is a shot that Chromon was a little too greedy, maybe 75 drones and a double expand or something like that. And this could work, but I think that's just too much Zerg.
Yeah, especially trying to push up that ramp. It's going to limit any kind of clever micro that Daydreamer might want to do here. Instead, he's just going to get annihilated. He is going to march up. Those Biles hit really hard, and the Gateway army in front of this is just evaporating, and now it's just these expensive units looking so vulnerable getting chased down by this Zerg army.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with this attack doing absolutely nothing, Daydreamer's hopes of winning this game really have gone down the drain. Losing that third base was absolutely a problem, but I don't know, maybe if he had kind of like done like a faux pressure right there, just, saw that he had control over the ramp and threatened force fields in case Chromon ever tried to attack into them, and then just actually macroed behind this to storm, he might have had a better shot. It's just a hard game, though. He's even going to lose
this Immortal for free at the back, which is just rubbing salt in the wounds at this point. And, all these immortals falling, Ling's getting the wraparound on it, and now it's just Zealots against like double their army count in Hydra Roach, and this is absolutely devastating here. I think this is going to be it for Daydreamer as Kremlin pushes on through the third, and there is no army supply active aside from this one Archon.
Nah. Well, GG. That is kind of what happens when that first attack does nothing. Kremlin was super prepared for it.
Yeah, so that is going to be our first game to UIUC. And congrats to Kremlin for putting one on the board. They've still got the rest of the series here, but that's a really nice start considering it's their best player taking out their opponent's best player. Don't go anywhere, guys. We will be right back.
But she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell. But I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. We've got Simon Fraser University versus UICU here, and we're getting ready to hop into our second 1v1 on Neon Violet Square.
So we have Frost hoping to get the second win for his team after Krillmon made it almost look easy, but it might be tough. They're getting into game number 2 in the bottom right. As the green Terran, it is Lingazing.
And his opponent in the top left-hand corner, it is the red Terran, Frost. So I did peek at their profiles, and Frost was in Masters, and he'd only ranked once. He only had one ladder season, so I'm wondering if maybe this is not his main ladder account.
Okay.
And there's a bit of a skill difference, but I don't know too much about either of these guys. This is one of those CSLs that has kind of the classic flying a bit blind, you know, compared to the teams where you have like an RPI, where you have like a Jon Snow or something.
Yeah, these are, I mean, this might sound rude, but they're kind of like middling teams. Their scores are middle of the road, you know, some losses, some wins. They don't necessarily have an ace player, but they do have better players than others. So it's hard that they, you know, to actually make a name for yourselves. And then I guess in the case of like Daydreamer, for instance, who was the one that took a game off of Semper, sometimes these guys change names, and that's a whole other issue, but it can be hard to attract their stories. But I guess one thing we'll know about Lingazing, except that his name is actually amazing, I really like it, is that he also cheeses, as you do have that proxy Rax with just a single proxy Rax. This has got to be leading up into that proxy factory as well, most likely for Cyclones. This is such a brutal thing, especially if Frost wasn't going to scout. I really am glad for his sake that he is, though. But he's got to kind of scratch his head and think, like, what could this possibly be? And, okay, he is reacting as fast as possible. It's still up to question, like, up in the air, does he react correctly? Because defending against a 2-Rax and defending against a Cyclone Rush can be two different things.
Yeah, and this is, I don't know, it's tough to know how to respond exactly correctly when you get cheesed out like this, just because so much of it comes down to micro, right? Like, it's not like, oh, you get these 6 units and suddenly you hold it. It's still execution. And if you're a little bit nervous in holding that, it's just going to be tough. You can't macro your way out of this kind of defense here. You have to really have all the perfect decisions, all the right micro.
Oh, that would have been such a perfect opportunity for Frost to block out the reactor. If he does that, an engineering bay would finish. There's nothing to kill it. You have to wait for a Marine to finish. And it would just delay an extra Cyclone, which would have been huge. But unlikely to happen. Not the usual way to defend against this. The usual way to defend against this, it's absolutely tough. Like, even if you know it's on the way, the mechanics of this are just super difficult to do. Getting 2 Reapers, already doing a 1-base build, that really helps. He did have to accommodate a 1-Rax expand to deal with this, but he's doing it correctly so far. And then you just gotta hold and then be prepared to pull your SCVs, because they're just, bottom line, gonna have more Cyclones than you, but you're gonna have high ground and SCVs, which are actually very effective against Cyclones.
Yeah, so this is starting right now as he gets those Cyclones up the ramp. He's going to target down that SCV before the bunker's done. He can't quite get the target down on that second one, so there is one bunker here that can help out with the defense. And the Cyclones get back, but the Reapers get in the bunker.
Yeah. The fact that he only got a Marine off of that instead of the Reapers or being able to focus fire the Cyclone is pretty bad start for Lingazing. He also didn't do any damage to the supply depots, which is also kind of bad, because once you actually are able to break into the base, that's when it gets complicated for the person who just simply has less Cyclones. But not being able to break in there, no chance to repair his own Cyclones.
Oh, but Frost needs to not walk down this ramp.
That's a bad idea right there. Okay, he doesn't die for it, though.
Yeah, you've got to accept the fact you are contained for a while, buddy. There's going to be so many Cyclones here. Just keep making SCVs. If you feel confident, make that CC on the high ground. You can float it down later. But don't try to walk down that ramp, lose all your stuff, and die.
I think he did that because... Oh, actually, I thought he saw the CC. He did not. Just kidding. His SCV's still stuck in the main base. Well, it doesn't actually see anything. So, this SCV, however, the one that was near the proxy, does see the barracks floating home in the factory, so that might have been it. But something told him that he was that this push is being given up on. It just is. It's still 6 cyclones here, so you gotta really respect it. But he's doing the right thing, building a command center on the high ground and going into tanks. The tank decision can be scary, even if you have that high ground. 6 cyclones will bust down a bunker really quickly. But if you can get to it, it will hold for you.
Yeah, it looks like Lingazing might want to try to make this work one more time. He's kind of like cautiously poking up that ramp. But at this point, the production of Frost is just, it's really starting to kick in. He should be able to catch up, but yeah, the tank is out. It's held.
Yeah, it is held, but I'm worried that the macro fell behind here. I mean, one of the worst things about dealing with any all-in or cheese is, of course, just not dying to it. That's rule number 1. But then rule number 2 is keeping your macro behind it, because the worst thing is not losing to a cheese. It's defending a cheese and then losing to the macro game afterwards, because you're supposed to win. I defended. What's the deal? He stopped making SCVs, which is a good thing when you need to build bunkers and cyclones. But it's a bad thing once you've held it. So we built a second barracks that I would say might have been better off being 3 extra SCVs. And he simply built, he never salvaged his bunkers. He just stopped building SCVs in general, I think probably because he was focused on something else. This has put him behind in the macro game, despite Lingazing delaying his orbital on his main base forever, basically. Like, it took a long time for him to get an orbital.
Yeah, he's actually going to come down here and try to bait some of these units in. I think he's really looking to start breaking this contain here. If he can pick off one more of these cyclones, he could probably just walk down the ramp with the units he has in that bunker and try to make something happen.
It'd be a little tough. Probably want to siege up his tank a little bit farther forward, or chase, get the cyclones chase back into it. But he is pretty close to breaking this. I like how Lingazing is following this up. Going for a double expand, kind of. He's got a natural saturated. His 3rd CC is finished behind in that safe pocket base. I think he could actually gone for the regular base with how much he's contained here. He even took a energy to scan the main and make sure that he wasn't going to be surprised by a Banshee. So I think he could have gotten away with a little more greed. But what he's doing is still very good. Ahead on workers, ahead on upgrades, ahead on stim. Ahead on medevac timing. He's actually kind of won this game, despite the cyclone push not doing much.
Yeah, and I think Frost might be starting to feel the pressure here. He's moving out with a medevac, and maybe going to be looking to get some kind of drop damage done. Frost looking like he's mostly worried about his natural right now, so this could catch him off guard a little bit. But I'm not sure how much damage he's going to get done here.
Doesn't feel like it will be a lot. Lingazing is probably well aware that, you know, he's still waiting on stim and probably combat shields, but knowing the position he's put himself in with that scan and just, you know, how long the cyclones were delaying the natural base, I think he knows that Frost might be dependent on a drop or 2 to bring himself back in the game. So he's got Marines in place while doing his own drop. This has stim, tearing down supply depots. Not the quickest reaction here, but there we go.
Yeah, now these Marines are going to come over. The medevac does get target fired very quickly here. And on the other side of the map, Frost is really struggling to deal with this push. Oh, he's moving all the SCVs back to fight.
Oof. I mean, his Marines were losing that battle, but the SCVs went in alone for a second. Cyclones at the front of the base. Look like they took out a tank and are looking for another one. Barely grab it, and the medevacs survive. That is a nice double drop. So... yeah. Now combat shields is on the way, something that Frost seems to have temporarily forgotten about. He's spending a lot of money that he can't afford on missile turrets too. These 3 missile turrets should absolutely be a 4th base in the or 3rd base in the making.
Yeah, this is just so tough to watch. He's falling further and further behind in that worker supply. Eventually that's going to start translating over to army supply and upgrades in a big way. And he's playing like he's still holding off some kind of all-in. And it's almost like he doesn't realize now his opponent just has more stuff than him, Lingazing, because he has double the worker count and his income's that much higher.
Yeah, it's really not a great macro game for Frost here. He's still missing SCVs for, you know, seconds at a time. He hasn't sent down his mules, which might be just a like a defense mechanism almost. Like, oh, I might have to scan, but he really doesn't. He should be trying to power up his economy, but it's probably too late at this point. Lingazing has 4 bases, working on that production, still working on the advanced upgrades, and this push is the only time that Frost will have an even army supply.
Yeah, so I like that he's doing it because, like you said, Lingazing's supply is about to absolutely skyrocket here. And Lingazing doesn't have any, he has one tank, excuse me. So Frost with the tank count right now can try to make something happen. I don't think he has the medevac count to do any kind of doom drop type play here. And yeah, I mean, he's going to get this fourth, but Lingazing is just going to lift it up, bring it home, even if it falls somehow. I don't think he really cares.
He doesn't have combat shields. He just double stimmed. He's going to get the fourth base, but now his Marines are actually useless. They don't even have medevacs here to heal them. They're just the worst thing in the world. So if Lingazing just got a decent concave, he would absolutely take on this army. I don't think he quite realizes that he, has such a superior situation. It's not even a superior numbers necessarily. It's just his units are so much better. He doesn't realize he's going to pull back. 3 tanks a little too scary right now.
Yeah, he's got 3 full medevac, or 3 full energy medevacs too. And Frost has not a single medevac here. I know he has a starport. He's making Vikings for some reason.
Yeah, I think he's kind of like, you do this thing where you're 1 basing or 2 basing as a Terran. And you can do it in the macro game as well, but usually by then you do have some medevacs. But anyways, the idea is that you just focus on Vikings, and then you can advance forward your tanks, put a stranglehold on a Terran player, and then get ahead. Which would work if it wasn't Neon Violet Square, and also if Lingazing would just realize his army was really better in all regards to what Frost has, Vikings or no, tanks or no. But he's kind of playing into the defensive corralled mentality that he can't break out, so he's going to try and do a drop.
Yeah, I mean, which is also totally fine because Frost knows he's all in at this point. He's rallying everything he has across the map. He has no chance of breaking Lingazing, and I think this drop might kill, like, it might be one of those single medevac drops that kills like 20 SCVs or something crazy like that.
He really doesn't have to play into the Viking War. I feel like, if we looked at Lingazing's vision, this looks like really, really scary. He sees a 3rd base. Actually, that's like the 4th, that's the 4th building with a scan, but might think that it's a 4th base, and not that it's only recently come up with this one here. I think now he realizes, like, wait a second, that was really 2 base for a long time.
Yeah, and suddenly Frost has no army as he eats those tank shells.
Well, it is Lingazing.
Yeah, so Lingazing still has a lot of bio here, but yeah, he has no more healing power. And I kind of like what Frost is doing in the sense that he's just holding him, and he's almost like when an animal puffs its shirt out to make it look way scarier than it actually is. He's doing the same thing here. Because like you said, this looks scary from the top, and really it's not, but he's kind of making like the few things he has going for them work to their absolute biggest.
Yeah, I want to yell like Lingazing just like stim down the ramp basically, but of course I can't. It looks like he's won the Viking War, which is as good as, I suppose. It took more time, and it's kind of unnecessary, but that's all right. Now I could absolutely break down the ramp, but I guess he maybe try dropping the tanks. I mean, I don't care how he does it, but he is eventually going to break out.
Yeah, and I think Frost should probably just leave now, because all these tanks are going to get caught, and these are his heavy hitting units. And these were the only reason that the game didn't just end before, right? So yeah. Lingazing is going to walk across the map here. I gotta assume that cleaning up that big army containing you triggers a big push, and it's going to be the reverse, except instead of a small army containing a big one, it's going to be a big army containing a small one, and he can probably just break the ramp, or you can drop into the main. Yep. He can do pretty much whatever he feels like.
Just break the ramp. He's kind of given himself a concave, just how he's filtered through the little neon violet squares. So use it, abuse it, stim to win.
All right, and here comes what could be the final push of the game. These tanks getting a little bit of decent work done from the back. Medevac healing is good though, and this bio army going to be completely uncontested as it walks up the ramp, sniping down these add-ons first. GG. Lingazing takes game number 2 for Simon Fraser University.
Yeah, tough game for our player Frost after defending the Cyclone push. Just didn't, really follow up with a macro, but also creating combat shields. One of the, worst feelings for a Terran player. You just slap your head because you could literally see your opponent has little shields, like their graphical upgrade, and you just don't notice that you don't have your own. Yeah,
so coming up next, we are going to have our 2v2, which will be Daydreamer, who's a Protoss, and Combat Wombat playing against Detail King, who's a Terran, and Waldosia, who's a Zerg. It's going to be on Shrines of Lizul. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with that game.
is calling, and the light falls lightly between us. Before tomorrow comes, and it all gets lost again. The ashes burn down brightest when we've everything to lose. And so scribble me out, mistakes erased, forgotten. Life goes on without me. But she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell. But I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out. I'm no
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are getting ready to jump into our 2v2 match on Shrines of Elizul. This is Simon Fraser University versus UIUC.
Yep, it's 2v2 on the smallest map possible of any map pool, I think. 1v1 and 2v2 included.
Yeah, I like this map just because there's so much rushing going on. So let's go ahead and jump into our game so we don't miss any of that. Spawning here in the bottom right-hand corner, playing for Simon Fraser University, it is the Teal Protoss player, Daydreamer, and his teammate, Combat Wombat.
And in the top right for Illinois, don't pronounce the S. It's the orange Darren Chica. I guess Detail King also, and in the purple Zerg Waldosia. It's like the female Waldo.
Yeah, I think Waldosia is one of the players that told us she was a girl.
Oh, ha!
I'm like 85%.
Good detective work.
I'm 85% sure. I know we got a list just so we weren't accidentally being like him. And I think Waldosia was on that list. So if I'm wrong, Powerfo, I'm sure you know. Feel free to yell at me in the chat. I've got that open.
Yeah, awesome. Then that's super cool. So I guess we'll keep an eye on that. So Shrines of Elizul it's the smallest map. It is just destined to have some sort of aggression on it. Yeah, both players, or I should say both teams, all four players, could go for second bases, but I still think that something beyond second bases would be aggression. Like no fast thirds here, no secret fourths. There is a gold base to take, but it's definitely better to just power up a two base economy with the gold, as opposed to actually try and like take it as like a regular third or fourth. And I would expect the Zerg to do that, but Waldosha isn't.
Yeah, this map feels so like Wings of Liberty-esque, right? Like, have you ever got nostalgic and logged back onto the Wings ladder and you're like, wow, why is the rush distance just 0? Why are all the bases so attackable? Shrines of Lizzle can give you that feeling again, so you can hop on 2v2 and play that. Not seeing... Okay, there's the Roach Warren. That's indicative of, you know, the all-in type attacks that we've seen kind of dominate the 2v2 meta here in the CSL.
Well, there's a lot of ways you have to change things up for 2v2. But something's get into the main base of the Protoss and see that as a Twilight Council. That's nice. Maybe check back later, see, make sure it's not a Dark Shrine. It is currently one basing, quote unquote, for all four players. Of course, Zerg has to be the natural, but you know they're not actually droning it, so it's basically a one base. So really focusing on getting units as fast as possible. Cyclones here for our Terran, who, by the way, is also the newly moved to U.S. Chinese student. Detail King, I believe, is from the Chinese SC2 clan IVL. So, the more you know.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
Those Chinese Terrans do like their aggressive openers here, guys like XY and Coffee and stuff. And yeah, this is gonna be a little pulling the boys here, a bit by bit all in.
Wow, okay. Well, paired up with the Roaches, it could go very well, but Combat Wombat has a similar way to defend against it. He's going to need to help up his partner Daydreamer, who is currently having trouble.
Yeah, and Combat Wombat actually bleeding out all those units super quickly here. Looks like Waldoja and Regio Chica are going to be pushing up this ramp, and they just need to move their units through here so the Roaches can squeeze by. They're kind of derping up against everything, but losing those pylons is brutal.
Yeah, not having Warp Gate's a big mistake. Let's see if the build is just a little mistimed here. It is going to be going into a Dark Shrine, but the Dark Shrine is just not near completion. It should absolutely be sniped to make sure they don't have to deal with that. And there's not much that Combat Wombat can do to help now that he's let out so many Cyclones.
Yeah, he's coming across with, I think that's the rest of his SCV. No, he's got a few more back at home here. He's trickling in Cyclones 2 at a time, and it's such a tough call because you don't want to let your teammate die, but you also don't want to just kind of bleed out Cyclones one at a time. And things are starting to look really grim for Combat Wombat and Daydreamer.
Yeah. I do believe this will put Illinois up 2-1. The Dark Shrine not finishing with any Warp Gate potential. That is going to be GG.
So super quick, super clean 2v2 there. Illinois doing really well to take that 2v2 map and put themselves one game away from winning here.
I don't think it was impossible for our the Simon Fraser University team to hold. But yeah, Daydreamer definitely had to have more than probably one more shield battery, just simply wall off. And I don't know. Maybe not go for a Dark Shrine. But I think that actually could have been a key to victory if he had just been able to hold on a little while longer.
Yeah, he also bled out, Combat Wombat did. He pulled 4 SCVs to try to help hold that, and he lost them just move commanding everything. And that's not a great way to start out when you're kind of responding with the exact same army your opponent has. So don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to be right back in a moment with our next 1v1 match.
Light falls gets lost again. The ashes burn down brightest when we've everything to lose. So scribble me out. Mistakes erased, forgotten. Life goes on without me. But she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell. But I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out. I know.
Right from the start, we knew that this would never be now, baby. Be now, baby. We're miles apart, and we just wanna let it free now, baby. Free
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to our fourth map. We're coming up on match point here in Illinois versus Simon Fraser, and we're going to be loaded into Abyssal Reef in just a moment.
All right, cool. So we do have D Keyboard as the other name, I guess, for Aureus G on the Reddit thread, and she is the rumored woman, I guess. So there you go. It's all cleared up.
Spawning here in the top left-hand corner, playing for Illinois, it is the Green Zerg player, D Keyboard.
In the bottom right, as the Blue Terran, he is Ragebox.
This will be interesting because we don't see a lot of ZVT here in the CSL. And I think it's always fun to watch. I feel like, especially at the lower levels, you just see a lot of ZVP, or ZVZ, PvP, and it's always interesting to see how these guys want to try to solve the matchup, because I feel like a lot of the time ZVP and PvP, the meta looks similar, but like, you know, maybe just mechanically worse than like the top level meta. Terran, a lot of the times, seems like it doesn't work like that. People want to try to do just like big 2-base attacks, end the game, not wanting to go to that late game where you have to be good with snipes and everything like that.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna see super late game, but apparently, new information. We don't know if anyone's a woman. Apparently, everyone's a man. So I'm just gonna use he/they because, yeah, I'm not keeping track of this shit. Yeah, TVZ could be a fun matchup, but it does feel like, especially until you get to super high leagues, that late game can be more difficult for the Terran players, controlling the different units, suddenly playing out in a defensive style, changes things up. And they do kind of lose momentum quickly since they can't constantly apply pressure. But that is, I guess I'm talking about bio, and there is that chance that Ragebox goes for mech. We are on Abyssal Reef, which was known for doing both equally well. But, well, I guess we're not even going to get that far, as we have D Keyboard already sitting down a Roach Warren.
Yeah, I like seeing this, going for one of those early game aggressions here. Maybe not feeling super comfortable against late game Terran, although Abyssal Reef, it feels like you probably would be, right? You can get multiple bases up. It's a big map, and you can kind of control the space a bit here. But this first Reaper is going to come in and get the scout, and if it can see this Roach Warren, that's going to put Ragebox in a great position.
Is under attack.
Yeah, so doesn't get into the back of the base and loses the Reaper too. There are so many other ways to tell that something fishy is going on besides just scouting the Roach Warren. The lack of third base, the lack of Jones at the natural, simply seeing the Roaches basically because the Reaper doesn't die but it hangs out in the natural. Any of that would have been better than just losing the Reaper like what just happened there. But luckily, Ragebox did have the command star on the high ground, so did not lose any time because the Lings got there. And now, if there was some intuition going on, it could even set up a couple of bunkers and try and get the Cyclones, but it would have to be purely intuition because there's been no scouting for this.
Yeah, and it does look like the first couple of Ravagers already on their way. The Roaches making their way onto the map here, and they're going to be knocking at the front door, making their presence felt. Back in the Terran space, we only have Hellions coming out, and this could be a very quick and decisive end to the series here.
It kind of feels like it's going to be pretty quick. And if D Keyboard wins, that would be victory on the side of University of Illinois. Another one of the players coming over from China, apparently, along with Detail King, who played in the 2v2 just recently, or just last game. So with no wall and nothing in production from the factory, I believe this is game.
Yeah, and these Roaches and Ravagers are going to try to just clean up as many of these SCVs as they can. There's like literally no DPS behind this. So as long as they can deal with the Hug of Death, they're going to be absolutely fine. They are going to break through here, getting it down to 2 Ravagers. I mean, you can maybe eventually clean this up with a second SCV pull, but you're going to bleed out almost every single worker you have, and even going to do some of the repair, you're wasting health, and this is not going Ragebox's way.
Nope. A Liberator isn't even really that dependable to clean this up, but in this case, everything's already cleaned up with the SCVs. So the Liberator can now just go across the map and try and do some damage, but it's not going to be a great way to consistently deal damage. A single queen, a single spore crawler in the right position will end its brief stint of harassment. It's gonna actually take on an overlord, I guess. All right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the little bits of free damage. If you get enough of them, you can maybe come back. But back in the Zerg's base here, going up to a 3rd base already. This is just going to be such a climb for the Terran. And it's not like they're even sitting on some big army they built to try to defend and they can like maybe counter do a bunch of damage. It's a Hellion, a Cyclone, and 2 Marines, and it's going to take the Marines so long to get there if any kind of counter wants to try to happen.
Mm-hmm. Spire is going to be very tricky. I don't think Ragebox is going to be prepared for this, because even if it was scouted it, which is still up in the air if that will happen, it's going to be a bad circumstance. There's that many SCDs. There won't be a lot of money to spend on missile turrets or a lot of production, as he is going into factories here from mech. There's definitely not going to be a lot of production for anti-air. Liberator does get a nice queen kill, so it did take on the drone line for a little while longer, but there's other queens, and this is all temporary.
Yeah, I think all Ragebox is trying to do is buy time for themselves here, and it's okay. Doing some damage is better than not doing damage. Maybe if you're super confident in your macro, you can try to engineer a comeback this way, but losing this Liberator, that's going to put an end to like the only real tool that Ragebox had to try to make a comeback happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least, I mean, the nice thing about the Liberator is that it's something to keep tabs on your opponent, regardless of if it does a lot of damage. I mean, really, you're not thinking it's going to, but maybe you micro it a little bit, it trips him up, or you scout something important like a Spire because you're going behind mineral lines. Unfortunately, it went behind the wrong mineral line, never got into the main base where the Spire actually was, and will have nothing to defend against this. Ragebox won't have an engineering bay, and really shouldn't. Until you know its metas, you don't want to waste those minerals when you're already so far behind. And there won't be a need for a Thor, because you're not going to afford double Thor drops, which are, one of the main reasons you get early Thors. This is just a bad situation. Here come the mutas.
Yeah, there was 2 Marines and a Cyclone on the ground here. I think that's it for present anti-air. 1 Viking does come out from the back. But honestly, I think the mutas can just jump on this and win a fight.
No, I don't know what happened there, but he targeted his own Cyclone with his tank. I really don't know what happened there.
That's it. There is no more anti-air on the ground. And I do believe Illinois looking to... Illinois looking to tie things up because Simon Fraser took that last game.
No, I thought this was, No, Detail King and Waldosia won last game, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Illinois looking to close out the series here. GG is called. Illinois takes the game, and with it the series.
Exactly. No need to go to the ace match, which should have been on black pink. And now we have University of Illinois going up to 3-4. No, hold on here. They go up 4-3, get second place in the group, and then Simon Fraser University goes down to 2-5 and go in 3rd place in the group.
Yeah, so I think that is going to do it for us this evening, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, thank you to Twitch for helping to keep the CSL possible. Give them a shout out, let them know you're watching and you appreciate their support. And we will be back next week, which will be our last regular season broadcast, but they're all like rescheduled games. So see you then. Be sure to catch it. That's going to be our last regular season games, and that is it for us.
Yeah.
Ashes burn But she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell. But I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out. I'm no